All set?
Yep.
All right, stand by. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of April 4th, 2022. This open meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board is being conducted in person with remote option available to the public consistent with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. This meeting is convened in person and via Zoom webinar as posted on the agenda and the town's website identifying how the public may join. There is no chat or Q&A function. All the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted on longmeadow.org. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. This meeting will feature resident comment. For residents attending the meeting in person, please fill out the public comment form given upon arrival at the meeting. I will call on residents in the order of which the forms are received. For residents participating in the meeting via Zoom webinar format, members of the public are attendees. If a member of the public would like to speak during the resident comment, please use raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. The meeting moderator will promote you to panelist, unmute you, and give you permission to speak. If you join the webinar by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Residents who wish to speak will identify their names and addresses only. Each individual is afforded 3 minutes for comment. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and some attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. And now we have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okie dokie. All right, let's see what we have for announcements. Long Meadow Select Board is still accepting nominations for Citizen of the Year and Citizen Commendation Awards. Letters for these nominations should be emailed to selectboard@longmeadow.org by Monday, April 11th, 2022. For additional information and to fill out a nomination form, please visit www.longmeadow.org/civic alerts or the Select Board's page on the town's website. Springtime is tick and Lyme disease awareness time. Time to freshen up on your tick and Lyme disease awareness. According to the CDC, there were 2,143 reported cases of Lyme disease across the state of Massachusetts in 2021. Visit www.longmeadow.org/civic alerts before you head outdoors to take these quick steps to lower your risk of tick bites. You could also learn more about Lyme disease and other tick-borne illnesses at www.cdc.gov/ticks. The town, on a different note altogether, the town's clerk's office hours have been changed. The new hours are Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., and Friday, 8:15 to 12 p.m. And these hours are subject to change for election deadlines. Okie doke. We have some appointments to take care of. Is that correct?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Dr. Elliot Greenberg to the Board of Health for a 1-year associate voting membership to expire June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'll make a motion we appoint Kirsten Avery to the Permanent Building Committee for a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Resident comments.
Thank you, Mr. Lance. My name is James Turtelot. I live at 64 Prinwood Road here in town. I'll make my comments brief, I hope to the point, and leave it to conduct regular business. As you all probably know, state law now requires emissions in Massachusetts to be reduced by 50% below 1990 levels by the end of the decade and effectively eliminated by 2050. Utilities did spend $500 million in 2020 replacing gas pipelines. Gas companies here are on track to spend $20 billion replacing 5,000 miles of gas pipeline, and actually that seems to be a colossally bad idea. We would not want to be part of that by approving the building of an unnecessary backup for an existing and already quite adequate pipeline. This pipeline would involve digging up roads through the heart of Long Meadow and Springfield as well for probably, according to Eversource, a 2-year period. Eversource has never responded to the Select Board and the Select Board's private requests and the Select Board's public requests, neither for a cost-benefit analysis nor a needs analysis for this project. Why would Eversource do it at all? Well, this project's going to cost, according to Eversource, about $40 million. The state allows Eversource a 10% margin, 10% profit on that project. That's $4 million. It doesn't seem, compared to these huge numbers I was talking about earlier, like a lot of money. But remember, all those dollars involve a similar profit. And some economists say, actually, that for a long time, the gas companies have really made more money on the profit from their construction activities than they do on selling us gas. So having that all in mind, I hope that you as Select Board members and the town as a whole, as reflected in its town meetings, continues to be vigilant in regard to this possible project, one that Eversource hasn't said much about for quite a long time, and that we continue to recognize that it's important not only for ourselves, but for the hopefully safe, healthy environment for all of Massachusetts and indeed the world. Thank you very much.
Mike, do we have anyone in virtual land?
There's 2 people in the Zoom.
Okay.
Mr. Marinelli, whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realize you were waiting for me. It actually may be more appropriate for me to speak during the public hearing section of the meeting. I'm here to have a few brief comments about Eversource's petition to put a pole on Ellington Street.
Yes, that would be a more appropriate time.
Okay, I'll hold.
Okay, we'll do one more.
Andre Chasen, you're on. Just unmute yourself and ready to go.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Chasen. I live at 236 Crestview Circle, here in Long Meadow, and I want to talk to you about Earth Day and what we have found as a result of some of the work we've been doing. I had sent along some pictures and a video for sharing to Mike, and I don't know if he's able to put them up on the screen, but I will give you a little bit of background. For Earth Day, which is happening April 10th, we have 23 sites in Long Meadow that have been identified as areas that need to be cleaned. And as of right now, we have about 180 to 200 volunteers going through who will be assigned to each site and to do the cleanup. There are two areas in my walkabout that I did in Long Meadow that I have found pretty difficult to see, and I wanted to share this with the select board and talk about some upcoming ideas. The first area that you're looking at is the beginning of the Meadows, which is Conservation Commission property, and it's behind where Gassick Farm is. And I toured it last week and took a look to see if it's an area that would be appropriate for Earth Day volunteers, which consists of everything from Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, to high school students, to seniors, older people here in town. So as I'm talking, I would like if Mike could share the pictures that I've sent. These are pictures of trash that has accumulated over the years near the river, along the Meadows land that has been left there. And I'm not sure, if I scroll it down, I think it's his screen that needs to be shared. So perhaps these are just examples of things that I have found. If you keep looking, this is just littered throughout the whole area on what is conservation property. And just to give you an idea of some of the trash, none of this is going to be picked up by volunteers because it is both too cumbersome, too hazardous, and maybe even some toxic stuff. And if Mike would keep going. It turns out that this is construction stuff that's been left on the site from somebody. And it turns out this dumping has probably been going on for years. Very little monitoring if anything is happening, and we don't know it, we don't use it. I did send a video, and I don't know if that's able to be shared, just kind of scanning some of the area, and I don't know if Mike is able to do that. If not, I'm happy to send it to each one of you so that you can get a sense of what we're talking about. This is one area in town, and there's another area in Turner Park, which has also residual trash, carburetors, cabinets, maybe some toxic waste that has been sitting in the Turner Park area for quite a number of years. Just discovered this year. So one of my big concerns is that we are sitting on a pile of trash that is nobody's really responsible for. The Conservation Commission, which owns this property, is made up of volunteers. We periodically go through different areas, but we certainly can't police, monitor, and clean up. And so my steering committee for Earth Day, and I will be coming back before the board and the town manager at the end of the Earth Day event, when we provide you with information as to what is picked up generally, but also some recommendations and some hope for ideas on how to clean up and then protect this property, which if you were to take a walk down into the Meadows, this goes along the river, and other parts of the state where I have been fortunate to be walking on conservation property along the river, the pathways are cleared, signage is there so you can see what birds, what fowl, whatever wildlife is there, what perhaps flora is growing. But certainly we need to make this a really beautiful walkable area that is continually accessible to residents and to other visitors. There's one more picture, Mike, if you could scroll down a little bit more. I would just like to show that these are mattresses that have been dumped. Go down one more. I mean, this is not stuff that's just been thrown there recently. This has been sitting there for quite a while. And we also, this picture particularly, it turns out that the farmer, after he's finished, wraps up all of his plastic and leaves it there, and we haven't done much to clean up the area. These types of piles are littered throughout the entire riverfront. So we really do need to pay attention to this, and we really do need to come up with a solution. And I'm hopeful that between our very talented town manager and assistant town manager, between DPW, the police department, conservation, Parks and Rec, we can come up with a solution that is going to clean up these areas and then make them really habitable for what should be down there and not for trash. So thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you.
Is that it for resident? Okay. Do we have any select board comments? Mark?
Yeah, I have a few. I just wanted to bring the board up to date. At a meeting in, I think it was early March or late February, we authorized the pursuit of recovery of funds lost by the Hamden County Regional Retirement Board through whatever actions they took. And I've been speaking with the town manager, and with her permission, I've spoken now to our town attorney. I'm not going to get into attorney strategy and things like that, but I just want to let you know that we're moving along on it, and I think that's sufficient to say it at this point and publicly.
Mark, is that the insurance claim?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's their directors and officers insurance, right. Second thing, I've attended a board meeting at the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority, their advisory board. There's a lot in the news about what's going on at the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority and the request by the city of Springfield for free bus transportation that is yet to be determined. It would certainly cost the PVTA some money, but the budget was set next year. It's a balanced budget, and the town assessments are essentially what they've been in the past. They go up 2.5%. There's also at the Pioneer Valley Metropolitan Planning Commission group meeting that they attend, that they hold once a month to just review traffic projects and the having to do with the Mass Department of Transportation, DOT funding. I want to correct something I probably assumed incorrectly that I found out, is that there's a pretty significant review of the federal funding that was passed, the multi-trillion-dollar or the $1.4 trillion federal budget passed for roads and bridges and a few other things. And I'm reluctant to say this, but it's pretty clear that none of that money is coming to the towns in terms of additional Chapter 90 money. It's all going to be captured by the state. What little goes to the state, most of it's going to go to major projects coming through the Department of Transportation, but none of it's going to flow back to the communities. I just thought I'd mention that because I thought that that's what might very well happen with all that money, but as they say, $1 trillion doesn't go as far as it used to. By the time they break it down to their 6 categories, and those 6 categories to regions and all that kind of stuff, it comes down to just a mere tens of millions of dollars to the Commonwealth. So anyway, and finally, the Scannick Valley Regional Health Trust, I went to that board meeting, and their finances are turning around a little bit in terms of their reimbursement based on actual claims organization. In other words, they really collect the money. They're the insurance insurer, if you will. And in November and December, they literally had 1 or 2 individuals with very, very, very large claims. I mean, 6-figure and 7-figure claims, and that has ended, they believe, with good results, they said, for the individual, although they didn't name who it was. But the big news is that in February, their finances seem to be normaling out a little bit, and so they feel very comfortable with the amount of money that they've limited the increase in raises in the next coming fiscal year too. So there was some question of whether that we were going to potentially get a surcharge or something mid-year from Scannick Valley, but they're now very comfortable continuing to go forward with the only 7% increase in medical rates that we had. But it was for a while touch and go, because when they approved that, they're looking at needing way above that. So I just thought I'd report those back to the board.
Thank you. Yes, Tom.
Yeah, I was kind of struck by, there was a situation in Pittsfield where a man with mental health difficulties was killed by a police officer. And as I think about our call center, they have limited access to mental health support. Over the weekend, I was able to talk to the mayor of Chicopee, and he kind of supported this idea also. They have, when there's a crisis like this, there's a crisis team that will be there, but the problem is the folks on crisis teams, there's a lot of turnover. And if you're looking at supporting police officers who are making very important decisions about individuals they confront who have mental health difficulties, it really would be beneficial for the officers to have a known person who is available 24 hours a day by phone. They wouldn't have to live in the call center, but to have them accessible and have the same person so they could develop a relationship with the officers and kind of understand them. They understand each other and be able to provide that kind of support. And this is something I want to do a little more research on it, but it's something that I think, because we are in a partnership with Chicopee and the call center, that we should begin to look at what other centers are doing as far as involving mental health professionals in helping the police make proper assessments, quick assessments that can save the lives of people who have mental health difficulties and not are criminal in nature. And so, I'll be looking into this, but hopefully I'll get back to the board on this. Thank you.
Josh?
I just want to encourage anyone who's watching and is not aware of the Earth Day cleanup on Saturday. There's been some announcements, but if you're able to get out there at all, I'm not going to be here this weekend, but I did it last year.
Is it Sunday?
Oh, Sunday. Is it the 9th? I thought it was the 9th. Well, maybe it's 10th. This weekend, whenever it is. It's really gratifying to do, and I could not believe, beyond what Andrea showed us, even I did Blueberry Hill, the school, last year. Unbelievable amount of trash, and it was, and then dropping off at the end of the day, you could just see how much of a cleanup in the town was. This is not something the DPW can do. This is not something the school department can do. This is, the town needs to step up. So if anyone can get out there, I'd encourage them to do it.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, we participated last year, and it was quite astounding when it was tossed around this town and left. I have one comment. Based on what I read, I just want to make sure that the comments I made concerning the gas pipeline are actually understood. The information that this board acts on, and in terms of this pipeline, is as sensitive as everyone is to the price of gas and natural gas, and we all use it, or most of us in this town, is the fact, and we get our information from Eversource, is the pipe that they want to build from Long Meadow Country Club down to Bliss Regulator Station through Long Meadow and Springfield will not add one bit of energy to anyone in this area at all. This is not for new supply. This is for in case the Memorial Bridge blows up. That's the reason they're going to spend $40 million. It's not, as much as we'd like to see more energy at cheaper prices for everybody, that this pipeline has nothing to do with it, and this is based on information, one of the few pieces of information we've actually gotten from Eversource, where they have continually said, this is not for expansion, this is just to make sure that there is a supply of energy should the Memorial Bridge disappear and the Bliss Street Station stays intact. So that was not necessarily reported, so I want to make sure of that. And I believe we're now done with Select Board comments. Are the Eversource folks here? You're not the Eversource folks back there? Are they appearing in person, Lynn?
I believe they're going to be on Zoom.
Okay. So we have, why don't you report, Lynn, before we
Sure.
move into the open
Sure.
hearing?
So the town manager's report of April 4th, COVID update for today, and this is today's numbers because my report did not get posted until late this afternoon when I finished it. So apologies for the delay in that. It's been quite busy in the office lately. So we have 27 community cases reported in town right now. Our numbers are pretty steady around the numbers of 20 in the last few months. Our quarterly legal expense update is embedded in the report here. So it shows you where we've come from since January was when I gave you the last report, and I'll continue to do these quarterly reports in my town manager report. So we've had some, we had $7,200 increase in the gas-related work. We had, there was a slight change in the DPW project, mainly because in the January total I gave you, it accidentally included FY21 bills. So that should have been left out. So it was about $28,000 change. We had an increase in expenses in labor council, town council, and a slight one in our other matters, which are police, fire, IOD. And our solid waste disposal, currently the town has a contract with Community Echo Power called CEP or CEP. That's who accepts our solid waste at the waste to energy facility in Agawam. That group filed for bankruptcy in 2021, and we just received notice that as part of the terms of the bankruptcy sale, all of the contracts will be terminated. And we could be terminated as early as April 15th. We're not entirely sure yet. It's still a little bit up in the air. We just learned of this on March 8th. So a group of local officials have been meeting and exploring all the options, and it's looking like whatever we do is going to cost more money. But I should have a lot more information for you at the April 19th meeting. And the adult center, although the building itself is finished, we're continuing to work through quite a bit of construction punch list items. This is completely expected with a new building. But two of the main ones that have come up recently that have drawn public attention are the power-assisted front doors not functioning properly. We do know this. The part's been ordered, and it's expected in the next couple weeks. And as soon as it is in, it will be installed. And there are some defects in the pickleball courts. The contractor knows about this and is working on a repair. And that will happen as soon as the daily weather temperatures reach a certain temperature so that they can actually grind down the surface and fix what needs to be fixed. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So we're with this cancellation of this contract. Are we talking other, I assumed, how many people, how many communities are involved in contract cancellations? Because obviously we're not the only one, right?
Correct, right. Many communities had contracts, including private haulers as well, commercial groups. So I don't know the total number of municipalities off the top of my head, but it's more than 10 and less than 40. So it's quite a big impact to the region.
And so it's all unknown at this stage. They've gone bankrupt. The contracts are gone.
Will be once the bankruptcy sale is approved.
Is there an interruption in service, or are we just going to keep dumping there? It's going to cost us more.
That's an option.
Okay, but we're looking, so that's on the
Right, so
table. It
what
could be
we're-
somewhere else entirely.
Right.
But
we're
we have
look-
somewhere to dump in the meantime.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. We're looking at all options, but mainly it's coming down to cost. So we're doing a full analysis on what we're willing to pay and what makes the most sense for the town.
And so we have a negotiated contract with a hauler to take the stuff out of town. And then we have no, we don't?
They'll take it to wherever we ask them to, and we told them to ask them to take it to CEP.
So this is a separate contract?
It's a separate contract.
Yeah.
But you are correct that that contract also dictates where it's going because the rate they gave us for hauling is based on how far they have to truck it.
Right, so if they have to take it to New Jersey, our
Right.
prices
Well,
will
then-
go up.
Right.
Well, they won't go, it's a joke. But I don't want to insult anyone from New Jersey. I love New Jersey. I saw my first bald eagle in New
I'm
Jersey,
from
actually.
New Jersey. Careful now.
God. But, so, yeah, but there's other communities that have this, are facing the same issue. And
Are we talking to them? Are we
Yes.
going to do something jointly, perhaps? Yeah.
We
okay.
are.
Great. All right,
I'm not sure we'll do something jointly, but we are talking to them.
good. Okay.
I just would like a Greenwood pool update, if you have any. We explored if we can order the liner early, and just to confirm for anybody who's wondering, Greenwood will be open regardless?
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Correct.
And that's open to anyone who gets a pool pass?
Correct. We would not receive it in time.
Oh, okay, so even
They
if
would
we
not be
ordered,
able to-
even if we appropriate it early, it doesn't matter?
Right.
So we'll be open, leaking this summer, fix it after the pool year, okay.
Okay, I believe it's 7:30. I believe we should have a motion to go into, if Eversource is around, do we know if they're here?
Doesn't matter, it's 7:30.
Well, it's true, but if they're not here, it's a pretty dull hearing, I must say.
If there's a representative from Eversource in the Zoom meeting, could you please just press the raise hand icon?
Maybe we scared them off after the last meeting.
well, this one seems a lot easier than the last one, so
That's
maybe
true.
they're, figure,
And the work's not already done.
Well, if we have no Eversource to present to us, then obviously the petition is not going to be accepted.
Let's see what people have to say. Maybe they sent the public.
See, I'm sure they did.
I'll make a motion to open the hearing.
Sure, okay, we have a motion open here.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Any discussion? No, we're good. The hearing is open. We have no Eversource, folks. So I assume if you people are here for this hearing, so we can have it all one-sided, which is just maybe, you can take your turns, come up to the microphone, identify yourself, give an address, and say whatever you want to say.
On, ready to go?
You're good to go.
All right. My name is Brian Prast. I reside at 47 Ellington Street,
Okay.
and I appreciate the opportunity to comment on the petition that came from Eversource et al. With the limited information provided in the petition, as well as the limited time I've had to digest it, I actually have a number of questions for the Eversource representative. I guess I'll put them on record here, and hopefully they can answer them at some point. My first question is, do we actually need a new transformer? As stated verbatim from the petition, the purpose of this work is to accommodate a service upgrade to building number 47, which is my house. Our service was upgraded in December, including the connection to the manhole down the street. So my question, is a new transformer still needed? And if so, why? And at a minimum, I would think that the petition should be rewritten to reflect why the work needs to be done and where. And with respect to where the transformer will be, right now the petition currently proposes it between buildings 33 and 47. My question is, why there? I'm wondering if it was made there to make things easier, if it was done at the time of the service upgrade to my house. So does this placement still make sense, is a question I have. And I believe that the citizens and the town should have a say in the placement of the transformer and not have the location determined at the sole discretion of Eversource. For example, instead of having it in front of a citizen's house, why not somewhere that would be less obtrusive? For example, on our street, maybe you can put it down in the corner between Route 5 and the parallel sidewalk where there's, 30 to 40 feet on either side of the street where a transformer could potentially be placed. Again, not in front of someone's house. Now, for some reason, it has to be in front of someone's house. I'd hope that it would be on the tree belt and not in someone's yard. I was hoping that Eversource would confirm that that, in fact, would be the case. Another question I have for Eversource is, what is this transformer going to look like? The petition says submersible, but is it going to be fully below grade? Is there going to be anything above ground? If there is something above ground, what is that going to look like? Is there going to be a metal grate that's going to be covering the transformer? These would all be good things to know for folks in the neighborhood. My next question would be, exact other what other work is contemplated by Eversource at this time? Again, the petition was quite limited in the information, and I know from firsthand experience from when my service was upgraded, it took some significant trenching in my yard, through my tree belt, through a couple of my neighbors' tree belts to hook up my service. So I'm wondering, are they contemplating digging up many other yards in our neighborhood to connect people's houses to a new transformer? If so, how many? And also, are they seriously anticipating putting up poles to deliver that electrical service, which is part of the petition? And I do find that request to erect poles, wires, cables, particularly disconcerting. I would have hoped that any additional service, wires, cables needed would be underground, similar to as they are now, because any poles or supporting equipment would drastically impact the beauty, the aesthetics of our neighborhood. In conclusion, I'm opposed to the current petition as drafted and respectfully ask the Select Board to not approve the petition as drafted. I think it needs to reflect an updated reason for and scope of the electrical work, and hopefully any reference to poles will be eliminated. In addition, citizens should be allowed more time to work with Eversource and the town to finalize the plans to find the best and least disruptive way to meet our electrical needs and to have our questions answered. And to that end, I'd like to know who I can contact at Eversource to answer these various questions. Thank you for letting me comment on the petition.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Richard Fontaine. I live at 54 Ellington Street here in Long Meadow. I've lived there for over 30 years. And my home at 54 Ellington Street was built in 1919. It's just over 100 years old, as is commensurate with most of the houses on the street. Before I start, and I'm speaking to you today, by the way, in opposition to the requested order for poll locations that's been submitted to the board. I have no idea, frankly, what this order means, because there's no one here from Eversource to answer the questions to this board or to the citizens who are gathered in terms of what they intend to do. But before I do that, I'd like to present two documents, if I might, to the board. One is a copy of a news account, a letter, or I should say a short story that appeared in the Long Meadow News by Betsy Huber-Port. It appeared in May of 2017, and under the caption of Betsy's Corner, the Olmsted Influence and Legacy. I'll give this to the town manager. And the second document, which I'll be handing as well, is a document entitled Areas of Historical Significance in Long Meadow. And I give you that first document from 2017 because there's a very interesting reference in that document to the gentleman of Frederick Law Olmsted. You're probably all familiar with Mr. Olmsted. He designed and built Central Park and the Emerald Palace or Emerald Necklace around Fenway, Prospect Heights. He did extensive work throughout the town of Long Meadow, including building and constructing the Bliss Park and the lagoons and pools there located therein. What that letter I've given you, that first letter from the article, I should say, the article from the Long Meadow News, what that article points out regarding Mr. Olmsted and his company, the internationally famous landscape architects that were located at the time in Brooklyn, is that the man who built Ellington Street in the 1919s and the 1920s, a gentleman named Clifford W. Kibbe, he actually consulted with Frederick Law Olmsted in the construction and the building of Ellington Streets and Farmington Streets. And that it's reflected in the layout and the characteristic of the streets themselves. Wide boulevard, tree belts on both sides of the street, sidewalks on both sides of the streets, planted trees on both sides of the streets, houses that are spaced so that there are spaces between the houses. Essentially what you're seeing is a residential ideal as envisioned by Mr. Olmsted that was put into effect by Mr. Kibbe. Now, that is important, and I want to, and that's referenced, by the way, on the second page of the letter. The other document I gave you is a document published by the Long Meadow Historical Commission. I don't know if there's a representative here, but I had spoken to one today, and they had no idea, no notice or information about this meeting occurring, or the request by Eversource today for an order from this board to erect poles, utility poles of 18 feet in height, with crossbars that can hold 18 electric lines plus 2 cables. They had no information about that. But they published a document that was most recently revised in 2019 that I've given to the manager, called Areas of Historical Significance in Long Meadow. And in that document, they indicate, and I'll read from it, you'll have it there before you if not already familiar with it. They indicate that it is our belief that the overall historical integrity of these neighborhoods, which they go on to identify in this document, remain intact. And it said, and indeed they say, it is our hope that this document will become a useful tool for general educational purposes, as well as a tool that may come into play if improvements or changes are proposed to the areas or properties that appear on the list. And number 9 on that list, in the terms of the property, which is found on page 4 of what I've given to the gentleman today, is Ellington Street. Ellington Street ground, and I'll just read from it briefly if I may. It says Ellington Street, number 7 to number 141, and Farmington Avenue exit number 6 to number 143. It reads, and it's from the Historical Commission, as follows. Ground was broken for this subdivision in 1917 by noted local developer Clifton W. Kibbe. The first houses were built along Ellington Street beginning in 1918. By the end of 1920s, most of the construction was complete. Homes on these streets, although some have been updated over the years, reflect the prominent architectural styles of the time: colonial, revival, Tudor revival, and craftsman. So what we have here, gentlemen of the Select Board, is a community and a neighborhood that was created historically 100 years ago to reflect a certain aesthetic and a certain character that is somewhat rare that we see around us today. And what has been proposed here by Eversource in this petition and the attached order, as they have written it, is they now want to, for the first time in over 100 years, place utility poles at some unknown number, at some unknown distance apart from each other, up the length and breadth of Ellington Street. And these poles are not insignificant in themselves. They're 18 feet to be in height, with 18 wires, 2 cables, and connected by a section of sustaining and protecting fixtures. This is what has been proposed for this neighborhood, that it was initially the brainchild of your forefathers and the Olmsted architectural firm that represent what I consider to be an ideal neighborhood. They want to put utility poles up and down this street. So yes, indeed, I am opposed to it. I believe in my conversations today with the Historical Commission, they are also opposed to it. Notwithstanding the fact that they had no knowledge of this hearing today until I spoke to them myself earlier this afternoon. And as you can see from the documents that I've given you, this is no small thing. You're charged with safeguarding the integrity of this historic location. Ellington Street and Farmington Streets are historic. And if you let them do this today, what will they do tomorrow? And what will they do the day after that in terms of Farmington Street and Upper Ellington and Upper Farmington as well? So yes, I ask that you look at the plain language of this order as has been proposed and the outrageousness of what they are proposing to do on that street as the beginning of what I think is going to be a catastrophe for those neighborhoods. And I ask you in the strongest terms possible to vote against this petition and specifically to strike down this order. And I would suggest finally, a simple solution to this would be that if Eversource wants to put some kind of upgrade, that they do what they've done for the last 100 years and relay or redo the underground pipes that serve the electrical to my house and every other house in my street, and not continue with this abomination. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Betsy Huberport. I've lived in the town over 25 years. I am the author of that article that appeared in the Longmeadow News before the Longmeadow News stopped publishing in the year 2020. Not because of COVID, but because of financial reasons. I found out about this Eversource situation today at about 11 a.m. I didn't know anything about it. As far as I know, there has been no publicity, but I'm a former member of the Historical Commission and also a lifelong member of the Longmeadow Historical Society. I can guarantee you that anybody who has all the information would be against this for aesthetic reasons, but also anyone who is preservation-minded of historic districts. I didn't have a lot of time today to do research, but the Longmeadow Street North Historic District is the second historic district in town. It was established in 1994. It goes from the north side of town, where it abuts Springfield, all the way down to Westmoreland Street. So it encompasses part of the area that we're talking about for Ellington and also Farmington Avenue. I don't know how far east and west it goes, but it definitely extends past the boundaries east and west of Longmeadow Street. It's upsetting to think that something that a visionary like Kibbe, who was certainly influenced by Olmsted, it's awful to think that anyone would want to put telephone poles or electrical poles on a side street that has been functioning for over 100 years with what I would say are underground wires. I am not an electrician. I don't know what the reasoning is, but it's not just an aesthetic problem. As far as I know, it would be dangerous to have poles put up in an area that has so many old and ancient specimen trees. And, you know, if anyone is aware of what happens every year with twigs coming down, branches coming down, I can't see that it would make sense. I think actually we should be going in the other direction, and probably more things should be underground than up where things can be damaged. I quickly looked at the Longmeadow website, and there's a database there that talks about all the houses in town, and I saw that two of the houses, which are very close to Longmeadow Street, the earliest seems to be 1915. There's another one here from 1923, but they all have mature plantings. They also have the sidewalk, as Mr. Fontaine said, and it's part of an area that really is influenced by England, called the Garden Suburb, and also the fact that Longmeadow had a streetcar going north and south along Longmeadow Street, so it was called a streetcar suburb. As many of you know, it was basically farmland before the 20th century, and this is one area that is an early 20th century development, one of many, but Olmsted, technically, he passed away in 1903. So we're talking about the Olmsted brothers, John Charles Olmsted and Frederick Law Olmsted Jr., who did work in Longmeadow. They did Colony Hills. They also did Glen Arden. They also submitted plans for Laurel Park and Bliss Park under the name of Longmeadow Park. And unfortunately, because the Depression happened, the vision that the Olmsted brothers had never was executed. So I'd like to just hand in this information. I'm 100% against anything like this happening, and I would hope that there would be some communication with residents in town, some advance notice. I don't know how you actually have a hearing without the people who are proposing this work. I don't understand why we're here and they're not here. It makes absolutely no sense. I have not seen the proposed information, but I think it would be great if we could somehow get that information to the public,
Well,
so we know what to do.
It's on the agenda on the website. It's there.
I haven't seen it. I had other things going on today, but it's very hard to keep up with everything. I did not know that this was happening. So just thank you for your listening, and I'll hand this in for your reference. Here you go.
Anybody else?
We have somebody in the Zoom.
Someone in the Zoom, okay.
And again, if there's a representative for Eversource in the Zoom, please press the raise hand icon.
I don't really have a, is somebody else gonna talk?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry?
Is Dave on?
Yep. Dave, you're good. Whenever you're ready.
You ready?
Yep.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, you're good to go.
Very good. This is David Marinelli, 9 Overbrook Lane. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I won't rehash any of the comments that have already come before the select board. I think they're all valid points. I am a member of the Historical Commission and the chair of the Tree Committee and a former member of the Energy and Sustainability Committee. So all those committees are interested in what Eversource does in town. You know, a new poll. First of all, I think if the select board decides to reject this petition, I hope that when it comes back, it's crafted differently because in its current form, it's quite confusing as to whether or not there will be any polls placed. The diagram on page 4 doesn't show any polls, but in the order for poll locations, it describes the potential for polls with wires above ground. And of course, you know, that may simply be confusion and boilerplate on the part of whoever crafted the petition and the order. I suspect that all they want to do is do some underground work, which I think nobody here would object to. However, if there were a pole to be placed, that would be significant because this is a street that currently has a street light or two, but not over ground utility wires. This is an area of historical significance. It's not a historic district, but it is an area that would be impacted by new utility poles. Utility poles do have a significant impact on our tree canopy. It affects where large trees can be planted, and Eversource in their trimming of trees creates aesthetic issues for our public shade trees. And I also would like to point out that if the Commonwealth wishes for people to abandon gas and decarbonize and use electricity for heat, we need a more reliable electric system. And every time we add an above ground pole, that's one more potential cause of fault during storms. And so I urge the select board to refuse any further additional above ground utility wires or poles, and Eversource should be making every effort to harden their system by putting our distribution wires underground. And so I do find the order ambiguous. I hope that what was intended was for underground work only, and I urge whoever crafted this order to come back with a new order that doesn't describe above ground poles and utility wires. Thank you.
Mr. Morantz, we do have a representative from Eversource here now, but I believe there's one more resident comment on the chat. Would you like the resident comment to go first or have Eversource speak now?
No, the resident comment.
Ms. Burrows, if you could just unmute yourself.
I have done so. Thank you, Select Board, for entertaining my comments. I am Catherine Burrows. I am 104 Ellington Street. I will be very brief, as I believe my neighbors and other Long Meadow residents have made eloquent comments with respect to this petition. But I'd like to highlight that Eversource has made a somewhat confusing description about adding a utility pole to upgrade power for a house that's already been upgraded. that if the service has been upgraded, it is unclear why you would then go ahead and add poles. They have not addressed the fact that we have a street for which there currently are no poles, and so it's a very significant change in how utility poles exist on our street. And then I won't, in the interest of time, I won't echo, but I just want to say I agree with all that has been said about the aesthetic, certainly the storm issues and risks created by above ground poles versus below ground poles or below ground wires, and the historical significance of a street where our homes are in the 100-year plus and minus range, so that adding an above ground utility poles would be a significant change in character of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, we now actually have a Eversource rep.
Good evening. Can you guys hear?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So just to address some of the comments that have come up regarding what we're building.
Have you
we
heard,
were
were you here from the beginning? Have you actually heard every resident comment?
I'm sorry, no, I was here from the very beginning, but I did hear most of the comments up to this point. I can shed some light on the design that was submitted that I think will clear up any confusion that there could be, and illustrate what we're looking to build, which I think will kind of smooth this over a little bit.
Okay, good luck.
So the petition that you guys have before you wrote, there was a service that was requested to upgrade that requires additional capacities from Eversource. There was a service line, which is the line from the street to the house, that was replaced last year. We did that before the winter moratorium. There is more work needed to upgrade the equipment feeding the customers on Ellington Road. As of right now, we have approximately 18 homes fed off of a single point of transformation. That is not sufficient for our customer base. Excuse me, one second. Sorry about that. So we need to add a little more capacity on Ellington Road to adequately feed those houses. The upgrade that we got, if the customer uses the service that was built, it will require another point of transformation on the street. That is the petition you have before you. It is to add a submersible, which is a below-grade transformer that is the same size as the existing one on the roadway, which will allow us to divide the number of homes fed from either point of transformation. In the event that we have a point of failure, we will have another piece of equipment on the street to serve electricity for the rest of the customers that are fed on Ellington Road, so that we have some redundancy in the feeds over there. So to address the hardening, that is part of this. Are there any other questions from either town selectmen or residents that have not been covered?
Yeah, we'll have a resident make a question.
Jeff Grime.
Let's have a seat, the microphone is for the folks in the audience. Yeah.
Hi. Jeff Grime, 87 Ellington Street. So am I to hear from Mr. Fuller that all you want to do is put in a transformer or whatever is in my front yard?
That is correct. We are looking and seeking select board approval at more transformer to be located in the public on the map. The language draft petition is standard templated language, if you will, that is submitted for all the petitions. The specifics are in the detailed drawing that's submitted with it.
Okay,
So we're
so
going to add down the roadway, and we're gonna add another submersible, is invisible outside, metal grate visible at the tree line.
Yeah, I think we're familiar with that. I'm sorry, I think we're familiar with what's in my front yard. What is concerning, and I think has us all here, is what's been noted, that the petition talks about wire poles to be put in solely at the discretion of Eversource. And what has been spoken of previously is that maybe that's an erroneous boilerplate that's in the document, but I would strongly urge the select board here to reject any proposal as long as that open-ended language is in there. I for one, have one of these things in my front yard, so if we have to have another one on the block in order to support the electricity that our upgrades are requiring, so be it. But the notion of having poles and wires running up the street, I would say let's have a different solution. Thank you.
Oh, sir, excuse me, while you're there, the thing in your yard, is it about the size of this table?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's underground?
Yes.
Looks like a manhole.
The hole goes down, the grate that's above it is probably of the circumference of that table there. And it sits right at grass level, and it's on the
Tree belt.
it's on the berm, right next to the driveway. And it has blown up, I think, once in the 20 years we've been there. And they come and they fix it and what have you. But this is just one resident talking. I don't want to speak for the block.
All right, thank you.
Questions from the select board? Yeah, Mark.
Yes, Steve, thank you. First, I want to comment to the people from Ellington who've come here. Thank you for coming. This is probably my 25th or 30th Eversource petition. They all read this way, and the details really are, and it's poorly written. I'll acknowledge it's extraordinarily poorly written. We approve what we want to approve. I won't speak for the rest of the select board, but I came in here tonight saying we were going to specifically exclude poles and overhead wires. That's been our policy. We've done it in the past, and we continue to do it. So you can, for whatever happens tonight, rest assured there will be no poles, no wires in Ellington. But I'd like to ask that Mr. Fuller address a couple of questions I heard, which were very good, from Mr. Proust, whose house it is, and you came in too late, but I think his questions bear repeating and answers. And, first question is, why do you need a new transformer? His service is already upgraded. I think you talked about redundancy and the need to split it, but more importantly, why is it going where you suggested it's going rather than on a tree belt? Why is it in his yard? I've seen these silos, I have them on my street, these underground silos with the gratings on top, but I think we need to understand that they are literally below grade, and all you see is, instead of grass on top, a grating, and I think that's important. And there was a question of what other work will be required by Eversource in terms of accessing this. So if you could address that, Mr. Fuller, I think that might go a long way toward answering some of the other questions you had, that people here had.
Well, the first, why is it petition where it is? Why are we locating it in the spot that is on the drawings before you this evening? We did the walkthrough at the DPW. I showed the folks in the field the maps that we had that shows where our high voltage primary exits Route 5 and enters Ellington Road. That is a radial feed, which means it starts at one point, ends at another, and has no means of backfeed. So that comes off of Route 5, and it stops at the existing transformer, which is where that existing metal grate is beyond the home where we are seeking the transformer permission for this evening. I don't have high volt primary beyond that. So the location to divide the houses had to be ahead of that. The manholes that existing in the roadway, we were selective in the location picked so that we do not disturb the road any more than is necessary. This both works for construction cost as well as quality of voltage to the customers when we select equipment location and how the homes are equally divided over both pieces of equipment. These are all design parameters to keep adequate and normal voltage to it. I want to reiterate too that the upgrade was not completed last year. The portion of the upgrade completed, which is an upgrade of the wire from the street to the home, that portion of it was done, but because the petition had not been completed, we're obviously not allowed to do any permanent equipment placement. So we changed the service wire and had a discussion with the customer about how much load can be realized, with the intention obviously of following up with the remainder of the street work in the spring once the petition had been approved. So that's for now.
So, Mr. Fuller, if the transformer was not added, would that mean that, this full capacity would never work and no one else on the street could upgrade to 200 amps?
So this was a 400 amp, but not an upgrade to 200. We would not at this time, without permission to add another transformer, be able to accommodate any other service upgrades with existing infrastructure. That is correct.
Yeah, Mr. Fuller, I took drafting in high school. I was a machinist at one point in my life. And when I look at this diagram, it is just so vague. I mean, you have some things here where you say proposed pad mount transformer, and it's a dark black square, but there's no dark black square on the diagram. You have another thing that says existing pad mount transformer, and it has a diagram, and then there's nothing that matches that on the diagram. So I don't even see how this diagram works. Can you explain it to me?
If the symbolic not 100% spot on, we can certainly deliver one to you guys that is grammatically correct if there are any issues with it. I'd be happy to do that. But to be very clear, at no point are we seeking permission for any overhead facilities, nor do we have any intention of installing any overhead facilities along Ellington Road. In areas where our facilities are already below grade, they remain below grade. So there is absolutely no intent to ever put overhead facilities on an area or down a roadway where equipment is already below grade. We are seeking permission for one transformer location because we only have one on the street. The transformer that's there, as I mentioned before, feeds several large houses, some of which have requested us to upgrade their service to a 400 amp supply. So we're looking to add a little bit of security to the infrastructure to make sure that in the event that we do have a problem with one transformer, we have another one on the street that we can use to backfeed temporarily so everybody has power and accommodate the service updates as they come in. That is the sole intent of tonight's petition.
I have two questions. If polls are not part of this, of ever to happen, then why are they in your petition? And they should be removed from your petition so they won't.
There are no polls.
You're talking about 18-foot
There are no
poles.
polls.
They're in your document. Yeah.
They're in the boiler.
Well, we don't want boilerplate. We want a document that describes what you want to do. And secondly, although your connection's very not good, Mr. Fuller, so it's hard to hear you sometimes. The other question besides, forget boilerplate, just take out the poles. Second question is this what you want to put in? Is it for backup, or is it for I live next door to the existing customer and I want my service upgraded? It can't be done unless this new transformer is put in, or this new transformer is being put in because in case something happens.
No, there are no other. Apologies if they can be very clear. There are no other upgrades that can be accommodated without the addition of a submersible transformer. We simply do not have the capacity at the street right now to upgrade anybody else's house unless we have another transformer to do it.
Okay, so this,
that is up.
okay, so this transformer is not for redundancy, it's basically for extra, if in case new capacity is needed.
It's two birds with one stone. With an additional transformer,
For this
we
upgrade
gain
as well.
redundancy by the installation in itself. This also allows us to divide the houses so that we do have a little more capacity at the roadway.
Yes.
Steve, I think the issue for me is that as more and more people, and we're going to see this over the next 5 to 10 years, put in electric cars and electric car chargers, houses are going to need more than 100 amps, 200 amps, and 400 amps. And so I understand the need to upgrade. I understand the need to supply greater power through additional transformers. I'm an engineer. I get this kind of stuff. What I haven't heard, though, is this underground silo on town property, which is within the tree belt area, or is it on, Mr. Bruce's property, which is not the tree belt area, which is more than, I think the number is 12 feet off of the street. The other question is, does this require that you dig up the street? I did not gather that anywhere in this petition, but from what you said, it sounded like because there was a moratorium, you spoke of the word moratorium, we had a moratorium about digging up streets. So does it, two questions, does it require digging up the street? And two, is this going to be on town right-of-way property, the tree, or is this on private property?
So the offset roadway would be the same as the existing one, placed a little further down the road. To my knowledge, the town property extends to the backside of the sidewalk, which allows enough room for the utility equipment to be placed. So the petition to the town is asking specifically from the town and its residents permission to set the facilities on town property.
So it's
This was
between the
slated
street and
for-
the sidewalk, essentially.
So if the town has take beyond the side.
We've got 8 to 10 inches beyond the sidewalk in most areas. I don't know specifically in this area, but we're generally 8 to 12 inches beyond the sidewalk.
It's on the tree belt, Mark. I know
So-
what Jeff and Lawrence is, yeah.
So it's on the tree belt. Okay, so the answer is it's on the tree belt, not on your property, okay, which helps.
Well, the current one is on the tree belt. From Mr. Fuller's answer here, sounds like he might be,
But we can control that with how we approve this.
Okay.
We can mandate that it be on the tree belt.
Okay.
And the fact that they've come to the town indicates to me that it's probably on town property.
okay.
The bigger question, Mr. Fuller, is are you required to tear up the street?
Yes, so there is some work for conduit installation for the high voltage primary and secondary return lines to and from that transformation. That was discussed with the DPW on the site walkthrough in August of last year. I illustrated to them, we agreed that we would expand the milling and paving to I believe it was 8 or 10 feet or 12 feet required. Apologies, I can't remember the number
Yeah.
offhand.
It's an 8-foot requirement, that's correct. A minimum 8 feet of replacement required, correct.
Yes, there is road work required, and we agreed to the enhanced milling and paving restoration.
Steve, if I could, my take on this is extraordinarily poorly written proposal that brought out all these people. But other than that, and I don't want to come off as crass, this is pretty much a routine Eversource request to put in a silo and upgrade service on town property. And based on, I think, our ability to specify specifically where this is going to go, it's ultimately needed and ought to be approved, but not in the way they wrote it. Now, we can either send them back and say, rewrite it right, or we can write it for them. I don't care how we do it, but that's my take on this, is that it needs to be done, it's just terribly written.
Well, this is probably the real estate lawyer in me, but when I saw this, I think it's very clear what's going to be done here. There's never going to be a pole here.
Right.
You can look at, the legends have, and beyond our general rule on select board, we're not going to put poles where there are none. The legend had, the first 6 objects on there are poles. There's not a single one on here. So the only thing being added is this submersible silo with the transformer. But what the lawyer in me came out, this is specific to what is marked on the plan. Yes, it says poles of timber, but it's limited to what's on the plan. You know, I'm your neighbor, I live over next street over. I would lay down in front of the trucks to not let poles go on. That was never gonna happen on Ellington. So if we need to reasonably cut this back and say no poles, happy to do that. But the reason it says poles, my guess would be, every utility easement in this state, from Eversource, Western Mass Electric, going back 100 years, said poles because that's what the easement said. That's what the utilities got the rights. Even a brand new subdivision going in, they're not going to put a poles on those, but the easement will still say the right to erect poles because that's just what we're a very old state. That's what we do. This is, you know, should they update their language? Absolutely, but it's so clear what they were going to do. I know everyone wants to keep the street beautiful. We're on board with that. That's what we want to do in this town. That's what we do. But I just wanted to let everyone know the select board does not easily let poles go on. We'll probably have another fight about down the street pretty soon for the cell tower pole. But so if we can pull out the poles from this, great. If we need to send it back, I understand. But I think it's clear what they're trying to do and clear what we're going to let them do.
All right, so it seems to me the issue is, A, built on town property, and B, I don't care about boilerplate. If that's in there, theoretically, well, hey, we got the approval for the poles, so they can come and...
But they didn't get approval for the poles because the plan doesn't show the poles. That's what I'm saying. It says we will do what is indicated on the plan.
So all the garbage about the 18-foot poles and...
Yeah, it's garbage. Right.
Take it out.
Yeah, then take it out.
We'll take it out. That's we can strike it on approval. It's contingent on that.
Right.
That's fine.
Right. So,
That's
Steve,
Yes.
Lynn just pointed out that if you look at the petition, it says specifically, you know, after the craziness about the polls, it says, under this order, colon, and then it says location and reason and what they're gonna do. So there's all that boilerplate stuff, and then it says what they're really gonna do. I'm very comfortable saying, you know, we're gonna approve an underground silo only to be located on town property between the street and the sidewalk, you know, and, you know, and a single one for the installation of a transformer. And if that's all we approve, this can say anything he wants to, that's all they're gonna get, which I think all they ever wanted anyway. Like I said, I've been through this 50 times.
Just take out the boilerplate and
Yeah,
leave
Well, the boilerplate is all preamble.
right.
No, not, the boilerplate's in the order. The information about the pole, some length, the height, the width, what it can carry, its capacity, that may be boilerplate, but if it's in your order, it's in your order. So just take it
But
out.
it was never gonna make it into our order, okay?
Then that's perfect.
That's good.
That would be
Well,
very acceptable.
So do we want to rewrite this for them on the spot and approve it?
Yeah, because I think it's easy enough to do.
Okay.
I do have one follow-up question for Mr. Fuller, too. Did say that the transformer is totally submersive? There's going to be nothing at all above ground, not any of the little green plastic things at all?
It's metal and it's gonna be yay high.
Yeah.
Well, extensively, and I'll give you guys a little bit of background on design choice. When I visited Ellington Road and noticed that we had an existing submersible over there, my initial plan was to look at a pad-mounted transformer, which is an above-grade structure. After looking at loading on the roadway, we chose the submersible transformer because the pad mount was not needed. To be upfront and honest, you guys, we can gain a little bit of capacity with a pad mount transformer. The submersibles are limited to 100 kVA, which is what is in place on Ellington Road right now, feeding the homes that are fed from that structure. A pad mount can go to 167 kVA. I don't need 7 kVA. Require us to put a pad mount there. 100 kVA is sufficient to feed the load that's served over there. In the event that equipment changes are required, if we run into a capacity issue down the road, we can't arbitrarily change a submersible out to a pad mount permanently. If one blows up, and we need to replace it, we can put a pad mount on top temporarily while a submersible is either located or replaced to get the street back up and running. We cannot put above-grade equipment where below-grade equipment resides without permission from the town. So to the town council's point a few minutes ago, what's being petitioned is only what's on the drawing. Regardless of what the boilerplate says, we have that permission granted for all of the equipment that's in the road already. So technically, the facilities that are there that are petitioned to be there, follow the same boilerplate. We are not looking to do any, and I'm happy to move that from the language if that puts everybody at ease.
We're gonna do it for them. And the issue is underground ones don't cool as well. And so that's why they have to be a little bit smaller. These things generate a lot of heat. Like I said, I've listened to this story 1,000 times.
So bottom line, though, this is going to be strictly below grade at this point.
You're gonna, don't run your lawnmower over it, but for the most part, it's like 1/4 of an inch, a 1/2 an inch, maybe, it depends how they do it, if it's settling or something like that. But yes, it's underground.
Because if this were the case where they decided to change this to above grade, it makes sense to move to a spot down.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah, right. I would be much more comfortable if we got rid of all that wording with respect to the poles, as you have said. So, thank you.
So I guess I'll make a motion to end the hearing.
Thank you. Get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, hearing is over. So we want to rewrite this for them? Go.
Yeah, I'm not gonna rewrite much. I'm just gonna make a motion that we approve the installation of a single underground transformer silo to be built on town property between the curbs of the street and the sidewalk, that we do not allow and will not authorize poles, and that they repave the road where they dig it in accordance with our policy of a minimum 8-foot wide in the smallest dimension.
Do we want to specify the location, which I think is between 33 and 47 on the street?
Fine, and it will be between 33 and 47 Ellington, but they, if they have to move it 6 inches, they will.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
We got that one,
Mike,
Mike?
you okay?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mike, do we have in the wires, underground wires necessary?
In the petition or in the?
Well, in whatever.
I didn't hear that.
Okay,
All the underground wires necessary.
right.
Yeah, no, okay, fine, all the underground.
Okay, we're good. We have motion second. All those in favor? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming very much. I might point out, my editorial is none of this could have been done in 10 minutes, but for the quality
Well,
of
they
the
didn't
petition.
listen, they didn't listen to you, Josh. It's too
But for the
bad.
quality of the petition.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's a terrible
Well,
petition.
they got to take away the
I mean,
boilerplate.
the thing is, Steve, we walked in here, and the four of us said, this is nuts, what's with these polls, because the way that it was written. But like I said, that's the way they write them.
I think it's got to be related to easements, because the easements those are even more boilerplate.
All right, let's move this on here now. That was way too much time. Do we have minutes for last time around? No. Okay. The final warrant. We've got it?
Yes.
How about?
Sorry, you want me to jump in?
Yes, please
Okay.
do.
So this is an updated version, both incorporating all of the edits from the meeting on March 21st. The one is a track change document, so you could see what was changed if you wanted to spend your time doing that. And the other document is a more cleaned up version that also has the recommendations from Finance Committee that were made last week. There are 2 changes. That is why it's back to you tonight. There are additional prior year bills that were discovered that relate to the utility billing changes. So the increases in frequency of utility billing, there were bills that came in, we had a lot of staff turnover this summer, and those bills were missed. So those are in here as 2 separate warrant articles because they are being paid out of the sewer and water enterprise funds respectively. So it did also increase the total prior year bill amount, but being paid out of the two different enterprise funds.
And finance had no problem.
No, they haven't seen them, so they're gonna, it says to be approved at town meeting.
Right, but they were there for this conversation.
They know
We've all- yeah.
about the additional
Yep.
2 warrant articles that are coming. They know the backstory behind it. They will vote
Gotcha.
right before town meeting.
Yes, Mark.
I'll move that we, I don't know if we have to open and close, but approve the modified warrant with the additional of the 2 articles. I think they're Articles 7 and 8.
I'm second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes.
There's one other item related to the warrant that I wanted to bring to your attention. I think, Steve, you asked it on March 21st, and my answer still is the same, but I do believe we have some more leeway with placement of the warrant articles. You asked if we could put the pool liner warrant article with or next to the cover, and I think I explained that all the FY22 funded articles come first, then we do the budget, and then we do all the items related to the FY23 spending. And that's just been the way it's always been. You have authority to put them wherever you want. So if you think it makes more sense to put them together, we can make that adjustment now.
Well, since I don't have the warrant article by memory here, so is how,
Which number was that?
but is it part, is the pool liner part, that's not part of all the bonding articles though, is it? It's,
One of them is. The liner would be a bonding article.
right, but it's not, there's a whole bunch of bonding
Right.
articles, and it's not with those bonding articles, is it?
Not as one article, no. It's a separate article, but they're all in the
If
same
the board thinks it
sequence.
makes sense to move it up with the, I mean, they're really related, you know, the pool cover and the liner, I think it makes sense.
You gotta do the liner and then the cover, right?
Yes, yeah.
I don't have any preference. I was just suggesting that traditionally, the Monday before the town meeting, we bring in the moderator to go through these, and maybe, you know, she'll suggest that, and, you know, we could do it on floor town meeting to move them up, to change the location,
You could do that too.
to change the order. I mean, we, you know.
Just as long as, would that require a motion on, or
Of course
can
it
she
would.
do it? Or she can
Yeah.
just do it by fiat?
No, she can't just do it by fiat, but of course we could do that.
If you choose to leave it as is, I did add in the explanation today to see Article 20.
Yep.
Right.
My eyes are getting so bad.
Yeah, you're
Because it
right.
really, because it makes no sense to,
Yeah, the cover and then the pool.
yeah, I mean, if we approve the cover and then don't approve the liners, you know, it doesn't make a
Right.
whole lot of sense.
Right.
Well, why don't we just put them together now?
Yeah, I think
Fine.
I think
All
that'd
right,
be easier.
good.
So we'll move Article 20 up. It'll be the new Article 6. Or do you prefer it before the
I think the
cover?
liner should go before the cover.
Great, we'll do that.
Can I just ask a more important question, Lynn? For our annual town meeting, our bylaws require that a copy of the warrant be distributed to every house in town.
Yes.
Historically, we've used the reminder to distribute them, but I've been commented to me by more and more people don't get the reminder because they opt out. Is that, you know, I mean, I don't know the numbers of people who don't get the reminder, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't like 20 to 25% of the people in town won't get this warrant article, and I think that's a problem in not meeting the.
So we're required to deliver it to every household, whether they get the reminder or not.
Okay.
We contract separately with the reminder to distribute it. So every household gets a warrant.
So even if they don't get the
Correct.
Okay, so you've answered my
Yep,
question.
it's required in the
Right,
bylaws.
right,
Yep.
so, okay. That's fine.
If we get a number for how many opt-outs there are, we add that to.
Excellent.
Resident
Great.
subscribers.
Interesting.
Okay, so do we vote on the warrant? We're done with that? We're good with the final warrant?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make that change and it'll
Great.
be finalized this week to get to the printer on time.
Okay. The select board member for the Citizen of the Year, except actually there are two. When you say Citizen of the Year group, is that for both awards that we're supposed to have? Do we have any
Yes, same group.
nominations yet?
As of Friday, no. I'm not sure if any came in today. I wasn't able to check, so there may be some that came in today.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have a volunteer for this particular,
I'll do it.
Well, last year was the first year we did this,
Yeah.
where we set up this committee, and I think it's a good idea. It isn't that much different than when the select board themselves chose who they were. I think that people on that committee are in the know. And what we did last year is we just had the chair represent the select board, and I think that's probably a good idea, but, you know.
You willing, you want to do it?
I think I can handle
Looks like
that.
you got volunteers.
I mean, if we have no, if no one's nominated, then it'll be really, won't be that hard.
Yeah,
Okay, sure.
all right, great.
We'll make that tradition. The chair is, okay, fine. Preliminary town warrant, election, preliminary town election warrant.
I'll move that we set the preliminary town election for the 26th day of April, 2022. I think that's all we have to do. Polls to open from 7 a.m. in the morning, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
I'll second the motion.
I got a question. Is this how we normally do? I haven't seen a preliminary warrant, obviously. Is this how we normally do it? Because this is really, when it went down to 4 people.
It's a regular election, yes.
Yeah.
Our bylaws require that if more than 2 people for every open position run, we have a preliminary election. Want me to throw in my pitch for ranked choice voting?
Oh, God.
It would save us a lot of money, but the
But
fact
doesn't
is.
that, but this will be up here again on the annual town election, right?
No.
This is the election.
No, this
No,
is not
this
the
is-
election.
this is
The only people on this ballot will be the 5
Yeah, the 5
candidates for
people,
school committee. One person will be eliminated. So we're paying, pick a number, 10 grand
Right.
to eliminate one person. Then in the annual town meeting, those 4 people who get the most votes will vie for 2 spots.
That's what I'm asking, because that is not clear from this. I knew how it worked until I asked, and then I got confused again, but it's not clear to this that you are going to have 4. I mean, I understand, people can only still
I don't
vote for
think it
2,
need-
right?
We're just setting the election. That's all we set is the election. It's the town clerk who runs the results of the election and town bylaws that set how many people come out of that election. We're just setting that, yes, you can hire people, print the
Oh, okay.
ballots,
Okay.
and hold an election.
And
We've
people
got
will
we've got to
vote
approve
for
that.
2, but 4 will be
No,
on the.
people can vote for 4.
Oh.
It's only one gets eliminated.
Well, I understood that, but it says 2 school committee, all right, you know what?
The ballot will say,
Forget it. The ballot says,
it'll let you know how many you can choose.
so, okay. you can-
This is kind of like the Eversource
I mean,
language.
the big
was clear.
question, Josh, if you're Catherine Ingram, how many ballots do you pay to print?
Oh, God, I know, yeah.
She's already decided, and she hasn't shared that with me, but
Well,
the issue, you can't run out, see, we've got, 11,500 voters in
Yeah.
town. You got to prepare, that's the major
Well,
cost.
I'm going to show up just to see the ballot. I want to see what it looks like.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Of any more discussion? All those in
Sorry about
favor? Okay, warrant, election warrant approved. Operating agreement between the town of Long Meadow and LCTV.
Yes, so I don't need you to do anything with this tonight. I just wanted to bring it to your attention and have you have a chance to review it and let you know that the discussion is ongoing. So this is a outcome of the cable license agreement that was just drafted. The town historically turns over all of our cable money that we receive from Comcast to LCTV to operate the PEG access channel. And there really should be an agreement in place to do that. So an agreement has been drafted, it's been sent to the LCTV board, they've reviewed it, they've sent back comments, I've now sent it back to the town's cable license attorney, and we're awaiting his feedback, then I will come back to you. But as you review it, if you have questions, comments, concerns about it, send those to me and I'll make sure they get to the attorney.
So right now, we're a pass-through, basically, the Comcast gives us the money, that then we give it to LCTV?
Right, but there's no agreement in writing. Actually,
Gotcha. And the board, since this says we get a member of the board, who's on the board now? LCTV?
None of us.
That's,
Mostly who was on the cable license board, which is another issue that we need to rectify.
okay, all right.
So this agreement will protect both LCTV and the town.
Well, it'd make perfect sense if we're just handing the money.
Lynn, are the sections that were highlighted in yellow just for our benefit? I mean, this isn't an existing agreement, because the way it looks is like this is an existing agreement that we're modifying. There is no existing
There
agreement.
is no agreement.
Okay.
And so, have they had a lease in the past?
No.
No. Okay.
So you'll be back to us
I will.
with this? and
Yes,
again,
I just wanted to make sure
Any
you-
questions, issues, forward them to Lynn, so she can forward them to attorney person. Okay, liquor license for Franconia, the Clubhouse Cafe. Do we have any issues, comments with this one?
I checked with the treasurer and collector's office. They're all up to date on fees and taxes to the town. This is the standard seasonal renewal that they do every April and March to expire in January of next year.
Okay, so I'll make a,
Go ahead, go down. Go
I'll
ahead,
make a
Tom.
motion to grant a liquor license, seasonal or retail liquor license renewal for the Clubhouse Cafe LLC. It's a seasonal license for the restaurant that is at 617 Dwight Road in Long Meadow.
Second.
Motion second, any other discussion?
Yeah, just want to point out, in the past, we've had, some issues with payments and other things, and we found that the liquor license renewal has always been able to bring us up to date. So I'm glad to see that all their payments are up to date, and we're going to...
No, there was an issue last year that they...
Stormwater, I think.
Yeah, they showed,
Right.
they came through, all right. Motion second, all those in favor?
Right.
Approved. There's a new one, a one-day liquor license for the adult center.
I'll move that we grant a one-day liquor license for the adult center. That would be for,
Actually,
The
it's
date
just
of
three.
that-
I think there's three of them.
well, okay, so the first
Two,
one would
11th
be
and the 22nd.
for 4/22/22.
These are different events.
It's,
And then-
so to clarify, there are three. I just was able to confirm because I had the same question myself. One of the dates was wrong. I'm just going to confirm which one is wrong. So it is 3 events.
Okay, and then the second event is on 4/20/22. And then the third is on 4/11/22. Those are 3 different events, right?
Bear with me one second.
4/22, let me get this right. So 2 of them are on the same day.
Nope, so one is on the 22nd, one
Yeah.
is on the 11th, and the other one is on the 28th. It should say 28 instead of 22. The 28 was marked in the year spot by accident.
Wow.
All right.
I
Then
had to
I'll-
clarify that
yeah,
question this
So
morning
my
as
motion
well.
would be to reflect those dates. I apologize. And have we got any clarification? Anyone need any clarification?
Well, I was just going to ask a question, so
Yeah,
wait for somebody to second it.
so we have a motion?
I'll second.
That's, okay.
Yes.
So, I guess, Mike, you're our liquor license guru here. These are 3 separate licenses. So they've got 3 separate applications, 3 separate fees?
Yep.
Okay, I guess my concern is that, this is getting long in the tooth for me to some degree. I mean, we're doing this now, not just monthly, but 3 times a month now for this, and there is a limit, although I don't think we're close to it, of the number of one-day liquor licenses. I think the bigger issue for me is using a town facility, and I guess my question would have been, and I don't know if Mary Beth Bergeron, who's the petitioner, is here, is you know, what is the purpose of this, of this liquor license, these liquor licenses? You know, and are they fundraisers? And if they're fundraisers, who are they fundraising for?
Well, one of them specifically says it's a fundraiser, and the question of what's it for is not answered, which is actually an incomplete application, I would imagine.
Well, I have a comment on that. A couple of things. One is the last event, there was an event last Thursday night. There was paintings that were, and the artist was there, a local woman from town, and they had wine, and it was free. Everything was free. It wasn't a fundraiser in terms of selling alcohol to raise money. You know, the artist, I believe she sold paintings. I don't know, I'm sure she donated some money to the town, or the town got a piece of it, but these are not just, you know, like, well, let's sell drinks to people. I don't get that impression. And actually, I was thinking that, you know, given the fact that, you know, it is a fundraising process for the town, that maybe, you know, we should say, well, after 5 liquor licenses, that we shouldn't charge them. You know, I mean, there's only so many they can have per year, and they should be aware of that amount. But I don't know if we should charge them every time. Especially if they're not, it's not like they're selling liquor to make money. Yeah.
If I can, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
sure.
I'm not sure we can do that, Tom, as nice as it sounds. They're not the town. This is a private 501c3 organization.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to start a precedent of saying who we charge for one-day liquor licenses and who we don't charge for liquor licenses. So I think that's a real concern. My comment of being a fundraiser is, it sounds like somebody's raising money for, it may not be through the sale of liquor, it may be through the, what did you say, artwork or
Yeah.
sale of artwork.
Yeah.
So, is the town facilitating the Long Meadow Adult Community Center Fund to conducting fundraisers on a fairly frequent basis? And is that something we want to do? Because I can conceive of any one of a number of other organizations coming back and saying they want to use, whether it's the adult center or the community house and whatever. We had once had a policy of, we didn't allow liquor into the community house because we didn't want liquor into community buildings, and that's kind of gone by the way. But the reason I brought this up is it's gone from, you know, once or twice. I think it started as a kind of a thank you get together for the donors, and now it's, here we are with 3 in a 2-week period.
But one of these 3 on this application, I mean, one of them, not the other 2, the question is it a fundraiser? 2 say no, 1 specifically says yes, and then it says if so, proceeds are for, and that is left blank. So, I mean, I'm sure they're not selling liquor to raise money. I mean, they want the liquor there just as, you know, it's wine and beer, it's just as a...
Well, I guess we'd have to know. It's kind of vague, because we don't, again, the last event I went to, the alcohol was just there for ambiance. There was no charging for alcohol. You know, we look at, there's this merging of, you know, the adult center is providing the service to the town also in terms of cultural affairs. You know, these are, you know, when you bring in artists, when you bring in sculptures, artists, painters, you bring in, this one here is, you know, Indian culture, and they're gonna have Indian food, that it's, you know, it's part of our cultural development, you know, in a way.
And you know, and if the adult center was running as a program, I'd probably look at it differently, Tom. But this isn't being run by the town, this is being run by, you know, it might as well be the League of Women Voters or some other not-for-profit organization who's utilizing a town facility with the overhead that goes into it and all that kind of stuff, which is, in my opinion, why it makes sense to charge for the liquor license. Somebody's got to go in there with janitors afterwards or whatever it is, to do their programming, whether it's a fundraising or just the programming. You know, if it ran through the the adult center, I'd have a very different opinion, but it's not being run through the adult center. I think we just need to ask the question, that's
So is the fund paying a fee on top of, it's $50 for the one-day license, are they paying a rental fee for the room as well?
No.
So the town's losing money on this, really.
The way the facility rental agreement is set up is if it's a group that is there for the adult population of Long Meadow, I don't know the terminology right off the top of my head, they fall into that special category. It's just like if Faloka were going to do an event there as well.
So this is a modest non sequitur, but in terms of setting a price, this is one of the discussions. I'm Mark's knitting group here, and I want to use the adult center. Do I have to pay for this to rent or use a room for an evening? I understand there's cleanup costs, but I just, I need a facility in town that I want to meet with a group of people who are all town people. Has that policy been decided yet about how much we charge for town groups to use the building?
Yes, depending on which category you fall into.
Okay.
Yep.
How many categories are there?
I think there's 6.
That's it?
So if you look at a
Motion died, yes.
nonprofit that then,
Can we get that? Can we
you know,
get that out to us?
Sure.
Thank you.
but all the proceeds of these events are used to promote more events in town and to contribute to different needs of the adult center.
Do you know that for a fact? How do you know? I mean, this isn't the town. I mean, I'm not doubting it, but, it's that, this group is not accountable to you, me, or the adult center, or anybody else in town. And so I would hope that those proceeds are being used. I suspect they are, but it's a private organization. I mean, one of the reasons the ABCC sets a limit to the number of one-day, liquor licenses, and again, they're far from it if I recall going back, but, if they're running 3 a month, they're gonna hit it pretty quickly.
Looking back at the applications again, there's a checkbox also for liquor to be served or sold. The third one has served, the other 2 are blank. So
Yes, actually,
we're running a little light on information.
A little loose on the,
Maybe we should have Mary Beth in here and have a conversation about how often this is happening.
Well,
Yes.
The problem is, our next meeting is the 18th, and she's got,
these are all ahead of time?
well, one of them's before then.
Okay, so the first
The
one.
one on the
here-
11th, though, looks like it's complete.
Okay, so, but the first one is a concert, classical music, right? And that, I assume, we can make the assumption,
That one's
That-
not, it's not a fundraiser.
Right.
And, although it doesn't say what's gonna happen to the liquor.
well, it doesn't say if it's served or sold.
It also doesn't say if there's anyone under 21 in attendance, which
Never
some of
mind.
them checked off.
The next one is the dinner, celebrating India dinner. And so, I would think those, if the only one checked is the one that's, the last one for the Billy Arnold Jazz Concert, where they're going to just serve alcohol, then we should, if we're gonna vote these in, I would make the assumption, the other 2, that they're actually going to sell at those events.
Well, the only application that's filled out completely is this last one for the jazz thing.
That's the only one that's between now and our next meeting, although it's pretty tough to say, come here on the 18th and let you know whether you can get a license for the 22nd and 28th, but, I guess the question I have, and I don't,
Well, actually, do we have a motion and a second on the floor? at the
yeah,
moment?
Tom's got a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. In terms of discussion on this, I think perhaps we should, my feeling is, I think we should approve these things with, with the clear indication that a next set of applications is to be filled out completely, one way or the other. And then we should have Mary Beth Bergeron come on in, and Mark, you can discuss your concerns, and we can all discuss the concerns with, I mean, because I agree, this is 501c3 is not the town, and, you know, this is a continued use of the town facility.
Mhm.
Sure, you know, I'm sure the money's going to all the right places,
Yeah.
but, you know,
Well, I'd support your idea, your perspective that all the future applications should be filled out completely, that we shouldn't have to be, there shouldn't be any guesswork on our part. But, you know, when you look at, you know, we're gonna approve these and vote this in, I think you gotta keep it in perspective. You know, folks who have lived in this town for a while realize that this is one of the most exciting things that we've had in town in a while. I've talked to a lot of people who lived in this town, and they said, well, unless you have children in this town, you really don't get to know your neighbors. People don't talk that much to people next door. One of the best things I did was run for office, because I got to knock on all my neighbors' doors legally and talk to them, because otherwise you don't get to meet people. These events are great socializing. They're bringing out people of a wide variety of age. I mean, you look at Billy Arnold and his jazz group. If you've never heard Billy Arnold, you should be there, because he's excellent. He's one of the best drummers around.
It's by invitation only.
By invitation only. Well, I would, maybe start and see if you can get invited. But there are limited seats. There are limited seats. I signed up for one the other day, and the next day they said, by the way, you should come down and pay for this if you want to be able to go to this. You know, I think it's great for our town. I know we've had other cultural affairs that the town has given money, and they've set up concerts and so forth, but I think this is, you know, is a breath of fresh air for the town. And I wouldn't know why anyone on this committee shouldn't approve it, to tell you the truth. If there's issues about the process, then we can discuss that in another meeting, but I don't think this is the time to make this, to draw this line.
Mr. Chair?
yes.
I'd like to suggest that we modify our request to not only that the next time they be completed in advance, but in order for these to be valid, these need to be completed. Now, we can approve them, subject to them being completed, but I think our records require that these be completed. And Tom, just to comment, and I don't necessarily need to get into discussion, you know, I understand your point of view, and I, to a large extent, agree with your point of view, but I think we need to differentiate between a nonprofit who's been doing this monthly, twice a month, now yours probably 3 times a month, and a community functioning or town functioning agency, whether it's the adult center or the park and rec center, who we would have do this, who, by the way, aren't eligible to get a liquor license from us, I don't believe. So, you know, it's just a different operation. I personally question of whether, how much this would lose its cachet if liquor wasn't served. I mean, if it's really that great a jazz concert, do you really need to serve liquor, especially if it's, you know, if it's being sold, which it says, you know,
It's not.
it's not at that one, but it is at some of the others.
I guess we'd have to ask the folks on the cultural committee
Right.
to see what, because they don't serve alcohol.
Okay, so basically,
Well, the point
But
is,
I would accept your amendment to my motion to say that these applications should be completed fully, and all future applications should be fully completed. Do we need a second for the amendment, or I think we'll just make that amendment? You agree with that amendment?
Yeah, I do.
okay.
Okay. thanks.
So the motion is, we're going to accept these, the motion is to accept the applications, assuming that they are submitted in full to the town manager's office, and that's the motion.
And future
And future,
applications should be full.
and we will not consider a future application unless it isn't completed fully. Okay?
put no pressure on you, Mike, to make sure that,
That's right.
Well, I see there's one on each thing. We need to make sure that it's served as checked off, or whatever it may be that
Yep.
was missed on my end, so.
Okay. No more discussion?
All right.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We have street closure applications. Center School.
I'll make a motion that we approve the closure of Center School on, I'm trying to figure out the date. On June 6th for their field day. Usually they have a rain date now, but.
No, the rain date's...
June 3rd is the,
June 3rd is the date, June 6th is the rain
Oh,
date.
okay, June 3rd with a rain date of June 6th for Center School's field day.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes. I believe that's it, gentlemen.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Right.
So moved. We are adjourned. Thank you.